following video took over 40 years to make, and I'll explain. You see, as a semi-crazy kid growing up in the 1970s, Hollywood fueled my truck passions. It was the only decade that prominently featured trucking and truckers throughout the decade in film and television. It was as if the producers of the day were reading my diary, if I had one, that is. But I didn't, and it begins there.
I'm Anthony Fox. I'm a new caretaker of the Rubber Duck Truck from the Convoy movie. Just drove 500 miles to be at Brad's show. Wouldn't miss it. Love it. Love smoking mirrors. It's the first time in history in Hollywood and television that not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5 Hollywood big rigs have come to Brad's show, the Southern Classic here in North Carolina. And the Rubber Duck is the first to arrive, and we are positioning him for the show tomorrow. And this is going to be history in the making, and you're looking at the very first stages setting it up.
Around 1978, legendary director Sam Peckinpah got into the CB trucker action with Convoy. The film script was actually written around the 1976 #1 song, Convoy, by C.W. McCall.
Truck, we're going to line it up. I think it's going to go in line next to the Rubber Duck.
In 1977, Hollywood really kicked it into high gear and smashed the box office with a low-budget film called Smokey and the Bandit. The flashy truck paint scheme was a copy of the Jolly Rancher candy haulers out of Colorado from back in the day. Each one depicted a wild western scene. Director Hal Needham felt that it matched Burt Reynolds' macho character, the Bandit. Rumor has it that the trucks were actually painted with watercolors so they could be hosed off after filming and resold. Sad, but true. In 1974, NBC launched a new TV series at the time called Moving On, which was picked up from a pilot called In Tandem. The show was about these 2 truck drivers, Sonny Pruitt and his co-driver Will Chandler. Sonny Pruitt was played by actor Claude Akins, and Will Chandler was played by Frank Converse, who his character was an ex-lawyer. And together they hit the road and they made a living in the state-of-the-art Kenworth VIT. The VIT was denoting very important trucker. I can't make that up. That's actually from Kenworth, and it was a prototype for the studio at the time. Anyways, the series was heavily promoted by Mike Parkhurst and his then Overdrive magazine, and it was heralded by truckers of the day as being one of the most true-to-life shows that you could watch about trucking. I recall saving aluminum cans from my grandma's tavern and then going out and buying the Moving On model kit. It was awesome. Only in America. I go from being a kid fantasizing about the Moving On truck, and now here I am drooling over it as an adult 40 years later. This is awesome. By the late 1970s, NBC tapped yet another trucking series, BJ and the Bear. Greg Evigan starred with his chimpanzee co-driver, Bear. Hailing from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, BJ would be rolling the highways as an owner-operator in a red and white Kenworth Aerodyne. Billy Joe would haul anything for $1.50 a mile, and any hot chick that needed a ride. The show was awesome, and so was the truck. These trucks have come from multiple states. It took some plane flights, hotel rooms, hundreds of gallons of diesel fuel, and pure passion to assemble this awesome gathering of famous rigs. I mean, after all, this is the first time ever gathering them all in one place. You might call this my big rig bucket list on supplements. Now, the last truck being set here is actually the truck that started the whole 70s trucker craze, and in more ways than one. It was the debut film from Steven Spielberg in '71, Duel. Duel was originally penned as a short story by Richard Matheson, and it was then directed by Spielberg into a movie of the week. And it's his tale about a maniac trucker terrorizing a traveling salesman with his dilapidated, oil-spewing Peterbilt. And it left a scar on the movie-going public. Spielberg also said that by using the multiple license plates on the front bumper of the Peterbilt, subtly suggested that the truck driver was a serial killer and that he had run down other drivers from other states. That's cool. Another great Spielberg detail. So in the final act, when the Duel Peterbilt is blown up and it's going over the cliff edge, you can hear this dinosaur-like roaring sound effect. Spielberg went on to use that exact sound effect in Jaws when the shark's carcass was sinking into the ocean. And so Spielberg has said that there is a definite kinship between Duel and the Jaws shark, as they are both leviathans targeting every man. But as time has flown by, only a handful of guys from my generation would soon dig into their past and their bank accounts in search of the legendary Hollywood rigs. Finding those actual trucks, buying those actual trucks, many of which were in pieces, was no easy task. I personally have spent 15 to 20 years searching for these rigs. I'm proud to associate myself with all these guys that have those trucks now and have restored those trucks. Even just playing a small role is immensely gratifying. Thank God there are guys like Brad White, Dan Bruno, Paul Sagehorn, and Anthony Fox that took those leaps. I'm proud to call each of those guys my friend. They have collectively resurrected 5 of Hollywood's legendary movie trucks, recreated or otherwise to the best of their abilities, and now have taken on the role of caretakers of these iconic rigs. And for the first time in 40 years, 5 of the most popular Hollywood semis will meet for the first time ever together. That's right, parked right next to each other. So they have taken their own path from film and TV and converged out of the DVDs and out of the VHS, out of the screen and into what I'm calling Hollywood Hill at the Southern Classic. It's a gathering of chrome and steel and gleaming paint, except for the Duel rig, of course, because that's like dripping oil and it's nasty, but it's badass. They're all going to be here. So for all of you that couldn't make it to the Southern Classic Truck Show, oh, this is for you. So what you have watched here is the 1970s as I fondly remember them. For me, everything was about semi-trucks. There was no internet, just a handful of movies and TV, and maybe a few magazines. And these world-famous, fabulous 5 rigs defined a generation of truck lovers. You know who you are. I hope this spawns a whole new generation of truck nuts. I suggest you rewind, wipe the drool, and repeat. The 70s faded like that from the view of a side mirror of all of those semis from film and television. The impression that they left on me and countless other truck fanatics has never faded, and it never will. You're looking at history. By the way, during the Southern Classic, we had a surprise visitor who just so happened to be in Charlotte with his wife and got wind of the show and the Hollywood Rigs attraction. So he shows up to Brad's unannounced, and it is none other than Barry Weitz. Barry Weitz is the executive producer of the Moving On TV series from the 70s. He had not seen the Moving On KW in 40 years. For all of us to stand there and talk to Barry next to the very truck from our childhood dreams. It was a connection to all of our pasts, directly in the present.